Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Shooting Channel, and today, by the end of this video, you are going to know everything you need to know about chokes, what chokes you should be using and why you should be using them. Now, chokes as a whole can be a really confusing topic, but it is crucial that you are using the correct choke for the type of shooting that you're doing. Now, what is a choke? A choke is the end of the barrel which either widens or narrows the spread of the shot. A narrower spread would be used for further away targets and a wider spread for closer targets. So there are 5 main choke sizes. They are cylinder, quarter, half, 3/4 and full, or as you call them in America, cylinder, improved cylinder, modified, improved modified, and full. And these 5 choke sizes are identified by the number of notches on the end of the choke the majority of the time. So a full choke is identified with 1 notch, a 3/4 choke is identified by 2 notches, a half choke is identified by 3, a quarter choke is identified by 4, and a cylinder choke is identified by 5. When it comes to sporting shooting, which is what the majority of us do on this channel, most people use a quarter and half choke. That is because the majority of targets on sporting grounds are between 20 and 35 yards, which is optimal for quarter and half choke. Skeet shooters tend to have their own designated choke size, which is just less than quarter choke and just more than cylinder choke. This is because the distance between the crossing stake and pads 1 to 7 on a skeet layout is 21 yards. So a skeet choke has been specifically made to be optimal at that distance. Comparatively to that, trap shooters tend to use 3/4 or full choke because by the time they've shot their target, it is between 30 and 40 yards away. So 3/4 and full choke is optimal for those distances. Now there are 2 main types of choke in a shotgun: fixed choke or multi-choke. A fixed choke shotgun does not allow you to easily change the choke of a gun. The majority of new sporting guns or new guns in general have multi-choke, so you're able to take out the choke and swap them relatively quickly. Older guns like side-by-sides and specifically newer game guns don't tend to have multi-choke. They tend to be fixed choke because most people aren't going to stand on a game shoot changing their chokes for a specific bird that's about to come over. So they'll tend to stick to quarter and half chokes on a game shoot or on a side-by-side shotgun the majority of the time. Obviously there are outliers to that. Now there are also 2 other different types of choke: internal and extended. Internal chokes sit flush with the end of the shotgun barrel, and extended sit between 1 and 3 centimeters out the end of the barrel. So when it comes to distances and what type of choke to use, I'm going to give you a very rough guide of what chokes you should use for different types of distances. As I said previously, if you're shooting sporting, it is normally a good rule of thumb to stick with quarter and half. But if you tend to be shooting anything majority less than 25 yards, you want to stick to cylinder choke. You want to use quarter choke for anything around 30 yards, half choke for anything around 35, 3/4 for anything around 40, and full for anything 40 plus. Obviously that is a very rough guide and not something to stick to religiously. Just use that as a rough estimate to know what choke to use for different type of targets. So here I have the gorgeous Blaser F3, and I'm going to use it so you can visualize what changing your choke does to your spread of shot. So currently in this F3 I have quarter and 3/4. By using the choke key that Blaser give you, I'm going to slot it into the end of the choke here and unscrew it. Once it is fully unscrewed, you can pull the choke straight out and put it straight back in its box. Now I'm going to put full choke in the top barrel, and you want to make sure your chokes are in tight, not too tight but just finger tight. And I'm then going to put in half. So in the top, in the grey, is full choke, and in the blue is half choke. Nice, so you can visualise exactly what your shot spread is doing with each choke. I have these nifty cones. So for a full choke, this is a visual representation of what your shot spread will look like. As opposed to half choke, which would be more similar to this. As you can see, the spread of shot is already wider. And then just so you can see, if I would have put cylinder choke in here, this is what a cylinder spread would have looked like in comparison to full and half. So you can see why a cylinder choke would be better off for closer targets, because it spreads earlier, whereas a full choke would spread a lot later. Okay, so now you'll be able to tell what type of chokes your gun has, whether they're multi-choke and they're easy to change, or whether they're fixed choke, how to identify what chokes you have in your gun, and what chokes to use for different ranges and shooting disciplines. But please remember, shooting is not an easy sport, so it makes it very, very easy to blame the type of choke you're using on missing a couple clays. What I tend to say to most people is if they're shooting sporting targets, stick with a set of chokes that you know work for those ranges, like quarter and half, or half and half, whatever you determine is best for you, and stick to those. Because most of the time, changing your chokes too often can actually take your focus away from getting better at shooting. If you stick to the same choke sizes and focus more on your shooting ability, like shooting techniques and ways to shoot different targets and lead, for example, then I promise you will start hitting more than if you start changing to a full choke for a 40-yard target and a cylinder choke for a close one. Focus on your shooting technique first, then worry about getting those extra few clays by changing chokes later on. If you have any questions at all about whether it's chokes or shooting in general, please feel free to leave a comment below and either me or David will get back to you as soon as possible. If you found this video helpful in any way, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that like button and subscribe so you can see more videos like this. And if you like the way that I present videos and would like me to do more videos in the future, please let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for spending 8 minutes of your hard-earned time to watch a video of me explaining what chokes do. Please don't focus too much on your chokes yet. Ensure that you're using the proper chokes for the type of shooting you're doing and work on your shooting ability first. Don't get too overwhelmed with what chokes you should be using. Just make sure you're using ones that are relatively sensible for what you're shooting and then go from there. Thank you very much for watching and we'll see you on the next one.